It's 10:10 and we're starting right away. We have quite a number of people on the call already. We have about 70% of the guests that we're expecting on the call. So I guess that we can just go right into it and start. So I'll just quickly share the agenda for today's session. I'll run every one of us through the agenda and so that we know what we're expecting and how long we'll be here for. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone once again. The topic for today's webinar is the future of payments, bridging the gap for underbanked and the unbanked communities. We're very passionate about this topic because that's why we're in business. We want to ensure that we bridge the gap between the underbanked and the unbanked communities. Now, what do we mean by that? When you look at this topic or when you hear about this topic, the first thing you think about is financial inclusion. How can people who currently do not have access to performing online transactions or making online payments, how can they come on board to making online payments? How can they start doing transfers from the comfort of their homes? How can you get them to be part of the banked people or banked fintech customers? How do you ensure that they are included in the financial sector? That's why you're here today. And then we have a couple of speakers who are here to ensure that by the time we're done with this webinar, even you yourself will start looking for how to include everyone around you, your co-workers, your domestic staff, people that you know in the village, people that you know who are in remote areas, and people that you know who are not in the civilized areas. You would want to ensure that you start including them because you want to reach out to them financially as well and also ensure that they are able to carry out financial transactions. So I would quickly run us through the agenda, like I said, and then I will introduce the speakers to us. For today, we'll be having a brief session doing the introduction of this topic, which I already started, and I'll also be introducing the speakers to us. The first speaker will be speaking immediately after I drop the mic. And after the first speaker, who is Mrs. Ngova, I'll be coming back to introduce her. After she speaks, we'll have Mr. Larry Oladimeji also speak. Then we'll have the host of today's webinar, who is Mr. Elvis speak, and then we'll be taking questions while we prepare to round up the webinar. So we do not plan to take so much of our time today. So going quickly into introduction of the speakers, I will be introducing Mrs. Ngova first. Mrs. Ngova is currently the Executive Director. Give me a minute. Mrs. Ngova is currently the Executive Director of Business Development at NIBS PLC. I mean, we all know NIBS. You can't be in this industry and not know NIBS. In fact, you know NIBS one way or the other. You might not even know that you know NIBS because NIBS enables all of the transactions that we carry out in this sector. So Mrs. Ngova Iyembe Nwankwo is currently the Executive Director of Business Development at NIBS, and she's a transformative and innovative financial service professional with extensive experience, and she's successfully leading teams, initiatives, and projects. Mrs. Ngova is an accomplished individual with demonstrated problem-solving and critical thinking skills, which has been creatively deployed in establishing and leading corporate and institutional clients and deals origination. She is also experienced in trade product development, cash management solutions, transaction banking, and corporate finance deal structuring. And in her previous roles, she did all of that in Rand Merchant Bank and Standard Chartered Bank. She's a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusive development, and she currently serves as a trustee on the board of Women in Management, Business and Public Service, WIMBIS, the foremost women-focused NGO in Africa. Mrs. Ngova holds a master's degree in international management from the University of Exeter and a bachelor's degree in combined social science, politics, philosophy, and economics from the University of Durham, both in United Kingdom. She's happily married to a wonderfully supportive husband, and they are blessed with two lovely daughters. Please let us welcome Mrs. Ngova today. as she takes us through the topic, bridging the gap, servicing the banked, the unbanked and the underbanked in the community. So please let's welcome Mrs. Ngova. You can throw up your e-claps via the features that you have on Zoom while she comes up.
Remy, thank you very much for the warm introduction. I was trying to turn on my camera. It's always very unsettling for me to do these things without my camera on, but I am here. Thank you for the intro, and it's a pleasure to speak this morning.
You're welcome. We'll work on your camera while you're
Okay, so would you like me to start my bit?
Yes, please. You can proceed to share your screen. While
excellent. All right, let me share my screen.
Okay, should we be able to share your video now as well?
Yes, I'm going to try that now. One minute. Yes, I'm on now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, and we can see your beautiful face as well. You're welcome once again.
Thank you very, very much. I'll try to run through this quickly so that there's a bit of time for any questions. I know we have a 15-minute slot, but I'll try and keep well under that. So I think very quickly to take us through the deck that we've put together. I don't know how many people, are familiar with the people call it Athena, some people call it FNA, but they do a fantastic job really trying to pull together statistics to help us really understand what's going on in Nigeria and trying to understand and gain insight to help us to do a little better. So, just to give you a little brief overview of the country, it's a big country, very populous country. And what we have found is, sadly, a really significant portion of Nigerians are still excluded from what we call formal financial services. Now, over the years, there has been progress, and we'll go into some of the progress that we see. But essentially, what we are finding, particularly from the report that was issued at the end of last year, is that there is still significant work to be done. But I think in the context of this conversation, it's actually significant opportunities, given the fact that there's still a number of Nigerians that are not formally banked, that are looking for financial solutions to meet their everyday needs, loans, savings, investments, and just being able to transact easily. I think that it then presents significant opportunities. And I think that's the one thing I'd like us to take away from this session. Not necessarily looking at what the problems are, but looking at where those pockets of opportunities lie and working collaboratively to, take advantage of those, and more importantly, to serve the community in which we live. So I think not to get too into the detail, but it's important to get a sense of when we say people are excluded, what do we mean? So essentially, you find that the Nigerians that are banked, so they have a banking account, whether it's a savings account, it's a current account, it's a business account, they have some sort of interaction with a bank, and they've maintained that interaction. And so we can see that round about just above a quarter of Nigerians are what you would call formally banked. But then if you look at adult population, it accounts for about half of the adult population. Then from an other formal would be those outside of what we call traditional banks, but they do have some sort of license. So you will talk about the agency banking, you'll talk about some of the MFBs, the really innovative products that some of the micro finance banks have also brought to bear. This really would come under other formal. And then informal, we've got a lot of unions, we've got a lot of collectives. So again, they're not what you would call traditional institutions, but they do provide services. And then you've got those that are completely financially excluded. And that number is still significantly high. You cannot have a quarter of our adult population essentially being shut out of the ecosystem. But like I said earlier, it does then require us to think deeply to figure out what do we need to do to provide services and how can we bring them into the ecosystem, provide services for them, create value for yourselves, for your shareholders, and really get the Nigerian economy pulling as fast as possible towards sustainable development and growth for everyone. So again, when we look at sort of the exclusion statistics, sadly, women are more likely to be financially excluded than men. And trying to sort of dig below the numbers to understand why, there are a number of factors. I think the one that most people, gravitate towards would be tradition and would be religion. But I'd argue that that's not really why. I would say we really have not provided the types of services that women want to see and women would like to partake in. And so when I use I think I did a case study last year looking at some very interesting, what we call neobanks in South America. And the majority of these neobanks have found success in working specifically for women, trying to understand how women sort of organize themselves and working within those organizations. So working with market unions, working with women's groups, providing access to finance, providing avenues for them to save, because it's not often that they need finance. They just need to be able to interact financially, understanding what their financial needs are, how they transact, and providing them with opportunities and products that enable them to do that, and even providing insurance. And they've been very, very successful. Now, when we also look at areas in North Africa, which also have sort of the same demographics as well as the same religious lines as Nigeria does, we also find that there are institutions that have been quite successful in penetrating. So again, the question is, do we want to bank the unbanked women? What are they looking for? And how can we be intentional around providing services to those women? Now, in terms of the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, Nigeria joined this global network of policymakers, and we did commit in 2020 to reducing exclusion. And over the last few years, as you saw from the Athena report that I just shared, there has been progress. So it's not doom and gloom. We have seen concerted efforts. The launch of agency banking really complemented the efforts that everybody was making. And we saw that, in the inclusion baseline of 46.3% in 2012, we've seen about a 20 basis point improvement as of 2023's report. So by all means, we've been very successful, but like I said, there's more work to be done. Now, last year, we saw something that was it was pivotal to this conversation today, and that was the cashless policy. So the cashless policy has always been around, at least it's been around since 2020. And the point around it when it was introduced in 2020 was really to reduce the cost of doing business. So I remember in my very early days of commercial and corporate banking, where in certain locations in Nigeria, you really could not close the vaults at certain times of the year because the amount and volume of cash, particularly in our border towns or border cities, people would come in to do bulk shopping to then take across the borders. You really, I know Kano had a major cash issue, Maiduguri had a major cash issue, certain areas in Lagos had a similar issue, Onitsha also had problems, and it was really because the volume of cash being used in transactions was high, it was fueling a number of issues from a security perspective, but also it just was not an efficient way of doing business. And so the policy came out, and over the last sort of 10, 15 years, there have been attempts to introduce the policy, some more successful than others. But we did find that late 2022, early 2023, there was a new push in the cashless policy. It was a very painful policy for a lot of Nigerians, but I do believe that as sort of financial institutions, we missed that opportunity to really provide interesting, innovative solutions to the average Nigerian. We're still seeing lingering effects of that. And if you really dig into the Athena report, you will see that the average Nigerian really took a hit from that cashless policy. People were reporting loss of income. They were really severely impacted. And I do think that some of the blame for that lies with us and our inability to think of how to increase our reach, how to make banking easier for the average Nigerian, how to use what we already have to make it safer, more secure, and more easily. The other statistic to pick up from the Athena report is access to phones. As of now, I think access to phones from the report is about 93%, which means that quite a number of Nigerians have a device. Now, a number of those devices are not smartphones. However, they are devices. We have USSD channels. We've got a number of interesting ways that people can still transact. Have we really looked and done all we can? I don't think that we have. So again, I talked briefly about the agency banking. Kudos to them, and we'd love to see them do even better, but they have really changed the narrative around how can I get to someone. You now have an agent in most places around the streets, in more rural areas, at least in every village, and that is an amazing transformation given where we're coming from. Again, there's been a huge rise in the digital microfinance institutions who've provided things like microloans. They've provided access to finance, access to accounts. Again, they've done quite well. The conversation around that, however, is how well have we in growing focused on governance and compliance, as you'll find from some of the challenges I'll quickly talk about next. Again, I won't talk too much about the platforms, except to say again that I think in terms of innovation, we haven't gone far enough. We think that QR code payments are the next frontier. And we think that the fintechs and OFIs will be the ones who drive this, but we're not seeing as much engagement and collaboration. When we look at markets like China, markets like India, they've really, really been able to push their economies in the last 5 years through adoption of technologies such as QR codes, which, by the way, you can use smartphones for, but you could also use the USSD rails to transact. So I think, again, talking through the regulatory framework, it's very important that we take cognizance of what the framework is. There are a number of policies that have enabled growth. There are also a number of policies that ask us to look again at the way that we are growing, the way that we're transacting, and making sure that the average Nigerian feels safe and secure in transacting. So I think really the question then is where we've got the right regulatory agreement, regulatory environment and support. We've got some amazing institutions. Nigerians are bright and sharp. We've got a huge population of Nigerians. We've got excellent access to phones. It can be better through smartphone use, but we'll leave that conversation for now. But we seem to have all the ingredients in place for an amazing transformation, but we're not seeing things working as quickly as they need to go. So what do we need to go? What do we need to do? In my view, I think one of the most important things is education and awareness. But I would also say that you can't educate and make people aware if you can't keep them safe when they're transacting. I think the number one thing that we all need to focus on is the safety of people's ability to transact on our platforms. And I think that we're not collaborating enough, both with NIBS, both with the regulator, even within small sectors, there is a lack of collaboration. There's a high incidence of fraud. There's a high incidence of misinformation. And I think the other thing that we haven't done very well is we've also not treated the consumers well. So when you look at actually how well consumers are treated, you look at how much information we give them for products, we look at how well they're treated, how quickly they can get to us, how quickly we can, answer queries, we can give them refunds when there are issues, we haven't done well. So all of this, I think, needs to be wrapped into this education and awareness, which of course dovetails back into financial literacy. Collaboration, I cannot speak enough about it. We are not seeing enough collaboration. It's great to compete, but you can only compete and compete successfully where there's even a pie to share. If we're getting to a point where we're competing so much with each other that there literally is no pie left because we're engaging in practices that are harmful to the sustainable growth of the entire ecosystem, then there's a problem. NIBS was set up as shared infrastructure for the industry. We're owned by the deposit money banks and the CBN. Our role is to be a platform and to enable. We have more than 1,000 institutions connecting to us. But even in that, we see rival switches set up. We see people trying to take business away from each other. Often we're called to moderate. And I think that the pie is big enough for everyone. The idea that I have to kill you to succeed needs to die, because otherwise then I won't be open to sharing information and collaborating with you. And I think that if we can grow the pie by collaborating, there's more for all of us. So I cannot speak enough around this. And I think, very quickly, just touching on some of the medium to longer term things, electricity supply, that's the bane of all our existence. But I think the government is doing quite a lot already to get this in the right place, and we'll all continue to support as quickly as we can. Internet connectivity, again, our ED who used to be here, my counterpart Aminu, is now at the NCC. There's a lot of work that he's doing. We're already seeing formidable progress with trying to roll out greater connectivity, particularly in rural areas, and cheaper as well. So we have every confidence that we will see increased progress in this area. So I think, just to conclude very quickly, I think we need to invest in Nigeria. I do believe that there's phenomenal opportunity here. We just have to be intentional about it. We've got to invest in the right things. We've got to invest in the teams. We've got to train our people. We have to have the right infrastructure within our organizations. We've got to think about what the market is looking for. We have to drive value. It's not always going to be about you can't go in with a profit mindset. You have to go in with what is the problem we are trying to solve. And in doing so, the profit will come naturally. We've got to create awareness of our products, awareness of the safety features we have inbuilt into the way that we do business, awareness of, again, what value we're bringing to the market. We have to collaborate. Like I said, our doors are always open. We love to collaborate. We love to think with you, co-create, as we call it. We do not see ourselves as a competitor. We see ourselves entirely as sort of the supporter and the connector. We like to call ourselves the interoperability champion. And inclusion, we cannot grow this economy only catering to a specific, very small section of the economy. We've got to think about how we can drive growth, how we can enable growth, and how we can bring more people in. I'm particularly passionate about women. I think it's sad that we have more women excluded, but again, I think it's an opportunity. So I personally look forward to working with a number of institutions to figure out, how do we crack this tough nut? How do we bring more people into formal banking? How do we drive value for yourselves? And more importantly, how do we drive value for Nigeria? Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take questions.
Wow, thank you so much for the brilliant and educative session. I really loved that. And there were a few nuggets that you dropped that I was particularly interested in. You said that there's no need to compete. We can compete together and we can all be successful. And then you said that if we can go to fight together, we can all succeed collaboratively. And then you also mentioned that, apologies, someone is dropping a message on the group, said the chat function is disabled. Okay, let me quickly get across that.
I think they need to use the Q&A function. So the chat function is disabled, but the Q&A function is open, and a few people have already started asking questions there.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so there's a question here by Tolu. It said, thank you, Gova. How do you think that the fraud landscape can be improved? You mentioned fintechs driving the growth, but the scale of fraud is a major deterrent. What are your thoughts on improving this area of the ecosystem?
Tolu, brilliant question. So I'll take it from 2 or 3 points, but I'll try to be a bit brief. So I think the first thing that we as NIBS have done is we've launched an industry. So the industry fraud desk sits at NIBS, and we've been working for a number of years just to manage situation. But we have now debuted a fraud tool. It's called Hawk, and it sits sort of on top of our rails and is able to, one, monitor, but more importantly, using AI, look for patterns to warn and to so we have like an early warning, early detection system. It also allows us to more quickly find out where the funds are moving to within the ecosystem so we can nip it in the bud there. So Hawk went live in January. We're currently in phase 2 where the tool is learning. And, from an AI perspective, you've got to give it access so it learns. So we believe by Q3, the tool should be much more robust. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing that we're doing is we're working very closely with the regulator to provide data as to where we're seeing fraud happening, the types of frauds we're seeing. And you can see that the regulator has been super laser focused on compliance and governance. There was a publication that came out yesterday that tells you that they are now saying to all of us in the industry that, look, you're going to comply or you're going to not be in business. End of story. So we're also seeing that happen. I also expect that you'll see more regulations coming in that are looking at the way we do business and making sure that people are not using things like wallets to move money when they shouldn't. So again, regulating, but the regulator doesn't want to regulate. They want us to self-regulate. Unfortunately, we have failed to self-regulate, and now they're stepping in. And the third thing I think is on the collaboration front. So again, we're pulling more people into the conversation groups. There is a fraud forum that the CBN chairs. There have been 2 meetings I've attended. A lot is going on, working with the DSS, the EFCC. As NIBS, we're launching some jingles, which will come out in the radio, as well as some adverts going out in the next, I think, 2 to 3 weeks, which we are fully funding to educate the public around the fraud trends that we're seeing so that they're a little more wary. We're also working with the DSS, EFCC, ONSA to prosecute and sort of find fraudsters. We are going to be launching a hall of shame. So you'll begin to see, pictures of people. So maybe when you see your neighbors and your brothers, maybe not brothers, but your neighbors and people that with a wanted sign, hopefully shame comes back in and people stop being fraudulent. But these are the kind of things that we are doing. And again, we're very happy to have a conversation with you. My colleague Yvonne, who heads my partnerships business, will put our details on this in the Q&A. So if you want to ask a few more questions or collaborate with us on that, we're happy. Slides, we will send a version of the slides for them to share onwards. Now, I think what areas can one look at improving inclusion for women? I think personally, you know, I was talking to somebody about, I think it was NIN. We're saying we still have pockets of areas where people have not been registered for NIN. And one of the things that they had said to me was, you know, we can't get into women in Porter, for example, as a reason why. And I said to them, who wants to get into women? Who is it that's trying to access? If it's a young gentleman, of course not. But if it's a young woman, of course, yes. And in every single community, I have never seen one community in Nigeria that does not have a women's group. Whether it's a women's savings group or, you know, it's a married women's group or is a older women, there's always a group. So the conversation then should be, what are we learning from these groups? Because they're saving. Women are creating and doing their own little savings groups. My argument, however, is that women are more likely to not want to borrow. So if you're going in with only a borrowing solution, it's not really helping. It looks like what they want to do is save for the future. They want insurance. They want to put money aside for certain things. So what are the savings products? What kind of rates are you giving them? And how are you charging them? Because if you're going to charge them more than they're already paying for services, why should they come to you? What is the value? But again, very happy to work with you to co-create and think through things and just share my thoughts. But I think that there are opportunities. Look at the case studies from, I think I'll also share them on in the slides when we clean it up. But I do believe that there are neobanks in Mexico, I think it's Chile, and also in India, and they've done phenomenal work. How do I think fintechs can push NQR? This is the most exciting question. I love all the other ones, but this one I love. You know, my issue with NQR is the user journey. At the moment, if I want to pay with, so what are the options, right? If I want to make a payment, I have cash, I have transfer, I have a card, and I have NQR. How do we make NQR the choice? At NIBS, I'll tell you what we've done. We recognize that one of the big issues was, how do we confirm if I use a card or usually if I use a card, a receipt is printed, right? If I do a transfer, they have to go and confirm. If I do cash, perfect. So the first thing we had to do is create receipt printing. And right now, if you take the receipt printing API from us, when someone does an NQR payment and there's a POS to that merchant, the receipt will print out the same way you would get a POS card receipt being printed. So that's the one thing that we've recently done too. But beyond that, how do I actually do an NQR payment? I usually have to open my app, take a photo, then it tells me, then I have to input a couple of details, then I have to then say yes, then I have to authenticate, then it has to pay. I might as well do a transfer. So what is that innovative way that somebody can pay? I always say, what are other markets doing? Look at India. How have they made NQR work? It's been the fintechs. It's been the fintechs creating a one-stop portal similar to a PayPal or, you know, the other rails that work. And you just go in there and it's easy. I'm already authenticated. I just scan and my payment goes through. I think until we can crack that user journey, which I think the fintechs are best placed to do, we won't see NQR scale. But I believe that the first person that does it will see massive opportunity. So I'm encouraging you, Adiola, to think through that innovative solution. Come to us at NIBS, we'll enable you and we'll support you. Thank you. I think that's it on the questions.
Yes, yes. I think, yeah, you did. You answered up until Adiola.
Oh, I think there's one. Yes, Kazim. Kazim, I think USCC channel, it can only but help, because you remember what I talked about phones. So quite a number of Nigerians still don't have what we call feature phones. And though there's work coming in to see whether, Nigeria can build its own phone, which was the way that India was able to scale. But I think that there'll be a lead time. There will be at least 2 to 3 years for us to see that really bear fruit. So in the interim, how does the average Nigerian transact in a way that's easy? And I think USSD is the way to go. But again, there's been a lot of fraud on USSD channels. I think there's a lot of apathy. So we need to work together to, first of all, secure the ecosystem, get the messaging right, where people get confident again with the ecosystem, and then work with us at NIBS. We're always looking for ways to refine. So if you found that there are some challenges with the way it's designed, or you think that we can do it better, please, again, reach out to us. Our details are in the chat box as well. And we'll work with you and we'll co-create. But I personally think that in the absence of those smartphones, USSD has to be the way to go, as well as looking at interesting devices. I think also biometric enabled devices are another way to go, where people don't need a card or don't need a PIN. They can use their biometrics to authenticate payments. So there's a bit more safety. I think that's also the next frontier for Nigeria. And if we can crack that, we'll see growth.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Thank you. And I'm really appreciative of the audience we have here. A lot of people have been very active and participative. So I think we'll just wrap up the session with the ED of NIBS right now so that we can entertain other guest speakers. But I'm sure that if we leave her to this, she can take all of the 1 hour plus that we have. So right now, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Yvonne, for joining us. If we have more questions, if more questions are being dropped after your session is closed, we'll ensure that we send them to you, and maybe we can also pass the answer across to everyone on here. So to wrap up this session, I'd like to say that NIBS has told you everything that they've been doing to ensure that financial inclusion is done properly and is being passed across and ensured that other people who do not have access to do online transactions or use their cards or have the smartphones can also do transactions. Now, if you're on this call and you'll have to tap into some of the opportunities that she has mentioned, that's why CyberPay is here. So the CyberPay can be your fintech company to help you ensure that we bring these products to life for you while you also use NIBS as a processor. Yvonne's hand is up. Would you like to type into the Q&A session before I close the session finally? Okay, Yvonne already dropped the contact for NIBS in the Q&A session. It's partnershipbusiness@nibsplc.com. Thank you so much, Yvonne. We really appreciate your time here today. And from CyberPay and every other one on the call, we'd like to say we love you. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, it's a government, but not a problem. But great to see everyone. And
thank you, Gova.
Thank
Apologies.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So thank you everyone who was participative at Yvonne's Ngova's session. My apologies, I keep saying Yvonne. We'll just go straight to introducing the next speaker, who is Mr. Lanre Oladimeji. I'll be taking us briefly through his profile before we call him up to speak to us. Mr. Lanre Oladimeji is the group head of retail banking at Zenith Bank PLC. He has over 25 years banking experience, spanning operations, control, commercial, fintech partnerships, corporate and retail businesses. And prior to current responsibility, he was a zonal head at Ilupeju Zone for Zenith Bank as well. Mr. Lanre is an alumnus of London Business School, and he obtained postgraduate certificates in cloud computing from University of Texas. He is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He has a FCA and a fellow of Chartered Taxation Institute, CITN. He's also an honorary senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, which is HCIB. He's an accounting graduate of OAU IFE and had his MBA from the same institution. Before joining Zenith Bank PLC, he worked at Panel Care Foster as a chartered accountant, for his accountancy training. He has also won multiple awards and recognitions for his brilliance and excellent performances, professional performances. So we'll just welcome Mr. Larry as he takes the floor, talking to us more about financial inclusion and from his own perspective as a professional at Zenith Bank. Mr. Larry, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Remy, and good morning, everyone. Just like she said, my name is Larry Oladimeji, and a brief profile of myself has just been read. So that I don't waste time, let me quickly go to, I hope can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good morning. And I understand I have barely 15 minutes to make this presentation. And I will just start, cannot start your video because, okay, because I was trying to share my video, but I think I've been stopped. Okay, so thank you so much. I will be speaking to us on, of course, the subject is the future of payments, but specifically on how to, bridge the gap between the banked and unbanked, of course, in our own specific community, that is the Nigerian environment in which we are. So financial inclusion is a very crucial component of sustainable development of the government. It's aimed to bridge the gap between the banked and unbanked. And when we say somebody is unbanked or somebody is banked, what do we really mean? And when we say somebody is currently in the financial system, what does it equally mean? Are we saying that just opening an account and have money pass through the account constitute financial inclusion? The answer is capital no. Because financial inclusion has been expanded beyond that. It involves offering tools to help people manage their income stream and plan their future. It also involves helping small and medium merchants expand their business by using their purchasing power history with suppliers to assess their credit worthiness. What this means, especially the second one, if you go to so many locations now, you see the micro merchants carrying POS up and down for them to take payments. So the issue of cash is becoming, people are laying less emphasis on it. But that doesn't mean that we don't still have a whole lot of people not coming or not adopting digital payments. So for you to say you are financially included, you must have or use any of the digital channel, either it's card, POS, ATM, of course, ATM cards. You must be able to have ability to transfer, and you must be able to have maybe any of the financial products. You can see by the right, a bank account, credit card, insurance, savings, and the likes. So we don't want a situation where somebody will say, I am financially included because I just have balances in my account. So ability to have or being able to use any of the digital tools will constitute somebody being financially included. So, and what opportunity do we have? What do we see in Nigeria as from what we are discussing? How many of Nigerian population are actually financially included? If you look at EFINA report, EFINA is the base report that so many financial institutions, even the central bank, trust so much because of the depth of the data that they actually, give out to the financial ecosystem. According to them, the last data and report that they gave out, sometimes early this year, we saw that we have over 220 million population. In fact, and out of the entire population that we have in Nigeria, the segment or the number that we can say 18 years and above are 111. This figure is even very, very easy to actually remember. Immediately said it, nobody needs to actually write this down. 111 million adult population we have in Nigeria. And a good thing about this population is that we are predominantly, young, 18 years and above, 111 million. And if you now look at the population that are below 18 years, which means the population of Nigeria in terms of the entirety of the 220 million, it's about 60, 70%, if we want to say classification, that are in the youth segment. And you can see a whole lot of, the benefit that we can give to the youth in terms of digital adoption. So the population presents a marked boost in entrepreneurial activities. You see several of our youth segment now selling one thing or the other, even the ones that are fully employed. And a key challenge we have in that population is that about 21% of the adult population are dependents. They depend on, and the way Nigerian society is. If you have, you must be able to cater, and of course, for the elderly ones, it's even compulsory. And then you must be able to cater for the junior ones that you equally have. So developing financial service products that will serve this population is something that everybody should look at. Then, if you look at what I'm equally sharing, in the year 2006, from Nigerian Bureau of Statistics and FINA report, the rural population as at then was about 65.5%. And other urban population was 34.4%. But things are changing. You see people now moving into the urban area. Rural population is going down and urban population is going up. You can see what we have. Rural population is barely 41% now. And almost everybody is now coming into the urban area. And the implication of this, we'll see on the next page. What are the implications? Of course, huge opportunity for the payment companies to grow their income. Somebody in CyberPay just spoke now that a whole lot of solution can actually be developed. What solution are we now developing to ensure that we capture this particular segment into the financial inclusion net? Increase in demand for goods and services, entrepreneurial activities in the cities. Then skill gap. You need to develop yourself. A whole lot of companies now are actually recruiting one skill or the other. So if you develop yourself, the opportunity is there for you to just get, a very rewarding job. Then boost to urban location, and of course, increase in tax revenue that is accruable to the government. Then I would like to look at the Nigerian fintech landscape in general, because the impact of the fintech companies cannot be overemphasized. And I've classified them into three major buckets. We have fintechs that are into payments. We have those that are into financial services. And of course, we have those that are into other services. In terms of the ones that are into payments, of course, Paga is not even so popular again. I don't know why my secretary put them as number one. You can see, everyone can see the impact of OPay, the impact of Money Point, the impact of First Money, and of course, the impact of Z Money. There is a particular slide on this. That's why we didn't include Zenith in this, because we have a full-fledged agency banking network within the bank that we are using to increase the financial inclusion objective of the bank. Of course, wallet, where your phone number now become your account number. I think the last speaker spoke about the challenges that we are facing, or the challenges in the ecosystem as a result of what people are using wallet to do. That's what you get when you have to push people into the financial inclusion net. And what we need to do as financial service providers is to ensure that, what are the security measures that we can put in place to ensure that when you bring money, there should be a way for me to check, is that the pattern of your transaction? If it's not the pattern of your transaction, I should be able to either prompt you or prevent you from transferring that money out. Then we have online gateway providers. We have InterSwitch, we have Flutterwave. I think this is where CyberPay should equally come in. Of course, remittances company and POS providers. We have more than 2 million POS providers in the country now. And, we can see the impact of what they are doing to ensure that people come into the financial inclusion net. And of course, we have the service providers. Without savings, there cannot be growth. So we have the likes of PiggyVest, we have the likes of Cowrywise that are offering savings products to the young segment of the population. And of course, we have those that are into lending. We have rent money, we have fair money, we have carbon, wealth management, and then digital bank. Of Kuda, everybody, there's nobody that wouldn't have heard of Kuda here. And we've seen their impact, though they had one or two challenges, but I'm very sure they've come off it, and we can see the impact they equally have in the ecosystem. And of course, we have other service providers, personal finance providers, we have merchant solution providers, and we have API. API is an application programming interface where you can just connect with any financial institution in a very easy way. We don't need to talk about the details of that because I don't know the content, the composition of the team that is listening to me. Then what are the key challenges in implementing cashless economy? The first one, which everybody is even, the government is trying to battle this, the financial service providers is trying to, contend with this, is the issue of crime and identity theft. Crime comes with digital product provision, because as you are planning to actually make things easy for customers, the men of the underworld are equally planning to ensure that they go into your system and be able to take funds that does not belong to them. Of course, lack of infrastructure, the low level of financial literacy, habit and attitudes, and then government policy direction. Government policy direction determine a whole lot of things. Before now, you can open a wallet without BVN or NIN. Once you have your phone number, you are good to go. We have seen how that has been able to help in terms of financial inclusion. At a point, OPay published that they have close to 40 million accounts. Same thing, PalmPay. And we can see how that has really helped in terms of, deposit mobilization and bringing a whole lot of people into the financial ecosystem. There will be one challenge or the other, because there can't be anything that is straight through that you will not be able to have one challenge or the other. So as people have seen that, look, you can actually, steal somebody's identity because there's no BVN tied to those accounts. Then it became a very huge problem. And we can now see how government has come up with new policy that if you don't have either BVN or you don't have NIN, then you cannot operate a bank account in Nigeria. It may have its own challenge in terms of how many BVN locations do we have? How many NIN locations do we have? If you want to get NIN now, you need to go to either a financial institution like ours, if you have relationship with us, or you go to Nigerian custom or immigration for you to be onboarded. You can see the stress that people will go through, and that's where the challenge now lies. And equally, if you want to onboard yourself on BVN, you cannot just do the only way you can do that today is either you go through the financial institution or through the agent network. You can see the bottleneck that has been introduced as a result of the crime and identity theft that we are seeing in the ecosystem. So all of us, we have to work together as financial service providers for us to be able to, to ensure that the issue of crime, the issue of identity theft are actually, brought to the barest minimum. There's nowhere in the world where you can actually have zero crime. But if we can reduce it to the barest minimum, I think it will help the financial ecosystem in general. Then tackling tackling the issue that relates to financial inclusion. While big strides have been made, I've mentioned the various service providers, the payment service providers, those that are into loan, that is fintechs that are into loan, fintechs that are into wealth management and the likes. Big strides have actually been made. If you go to, there's hardly any merchant today that you don't see POS with, either POS of banks or POS of fintechs. It's because of government policy and people knowing that it is more expensive for you to actually carry cash. Not only more expensive, it is equally very, very risky. So a large proportion of the population are still living without access to formal savings, loans, credit, and other digital payment solution. And this is what I was equally speaking to at the beginning of the presentation, where I said, having a bank account does not make you to be financially included, because having a bank account can just be that you receive money into that account and you take the money out. That will not give you the benefit that you can actually get if you are fully financially included. Then we must develop products that will be used actively by consumers and help them to save, to expand their business, and become financially secure. And then financial service providers must put consumers and their needs at the center of every product we design. You cannot design products without the consumers of those products in mind. And you must actually achieve, for us to achieve significant market uptake, providers must design user-centric solutions, keeping in mind the specific need of various market segments, such as the youth, women, and the Nigerians in diasporas and Nigerians in general. Then deployment of agency network. The number of agents, even within Zenith, the number of agent network we have is over 100,000. And we can see the volume of business that is being done at these agent locations. Not only the volume of business that is being done, you are providing employment. Not only that you are providing employment, you are ensuring that people are financially included. You are issuing cards at agent locations and a whole lot. So these are some of the key things that we can use to tackle, financial exclusion. And I've classified into three major components, or what we can say are the major components of financial inclusion. The first one is that you must build financial knowledge, trust, and we must change behavior. We have seen I think somebody was sharing in the Middle East, you see a whole lot of the population having, bank accounts, but they hardly use it. They hardly use it because of the issue of trust. Am I sure that if I put my money in a digital form, when I want to collect it, I'm able to collect it? How can we, as a financial service provider, create trust for people to know that digital money is almost or even safer than you having a physical money. Then we must build a robust ecosystem to enable scale. There should be a strong partnership between the banks, the fintechs, the telecommunication players, government, etc. Before now, I'm very sure before the CBN clamp down, and I'm very sure CBN is doing a whole lot now. If there is a fraud issue and you call any of the telcos, because they are not being regulated by CBN, it's difficult for them to actually listen to you. It's difficult for them to listen to you because they felt the regulators are not the same and they just want to sell their own product. They want people to come to take up telecommunication lines, and then whatever they do with it may not be a major problem for them. But all that has changed now. You see the telcos equally saying, if you don't have NIN, you cannot operate your phone lines. So things are becoming, more encompassing, so that all of us are in the same ecosystem, so that so that we can now make the financial system very, very stable, secure, and then we create trust. The third one is that we must focus on human-centered design. I partly mentioned it, but these are the three key areas we must focus on for us to ensure that we can scale inclusion. Then in Nigeria, what do we see as what we can classify as, what can make people to be financially included? We should be able to provide no free banking accounts. I've mentioned it. Almost every bank or every fintech have, wallet accounts, even though wallet account before now does not have BVN. But it doesn't really matter. You can see that so many of the fintechs have equally changed, that if you don't have BVN, if you don't have NIN, you cannot onboard. The introduction of wallets, savings products suited to the pattern of cash flow of poor household, and then money transfer facilities, and of course, insurance and the likes. Then solution to implementing cashless economy, investment in a robust technology framework, more awareness on digital finance, support from the banks and fintechs and governments, and regulatory framework and government policies must be, the policies of the government must be towards what will not be so, cumbersome for people to uptake or be included. So that when you are developing products or when you are bringing policies, it must not be something that will be so difficult for people to actually uptake. Then what do we have in Zenith Bank as key solutions for us to enable financial inclusion? We have our mobile app, internet banking, and other online channels that you can use to connect with us. USSD channel where you don't need maybe telecommunication or any for you to be, this is the cheapest way of actually connecting. IVR, if you are calling the experience center, we're able to know who is calling, we're able to profile you and look at what you have versus what we feel you should have. Z-Wallet, which is a key solution that the bank equally offer. Of course, our agent network. Scan to Pay was discussed comprehensively by the previous presenter. Various form of cards, global payments if you are selling online, and this is equally very, very important. Everybody must be selling online because that is where you can actually expose yourself to the world. Nobody needs, how many people can come to your physical location? But if you're able to put yourself online, people can see you from anywhere in the world, and you can increase your sale. Expert is an in-house developed solution where you can use to collect payments easily. Of course, POS and ATM, and of course, settlement relationship. There's no way if you are either a fintech or any other financial service provider as a bank, I mean, apart from banks, you cannot connect to NIMS directly. You cannot equally connect to InterSwitch without having a settlement relationship where you have a sponsor bank, and that you can actually obtain easily from Zenith Bank. So in conclusion, all around the world, government and business alike are increasingly focused on ways to foster greater financial inclusion. Technology is having a big impact, with new innovation playing an important role in helping disadvantaged consumers enter formal banking system. It is important to remember that past performance won't dictate the future. While progress has been made, which I already discussed, it is vital that we do not stop or drop the ball on the challenges of financial inclusion. Problems are becoming more regional. What is, the problem in Nigeria may not be what we have in other regions. And what we even have in a particular region in Nigeria may be different from what we have. What we have in the north in terms of challenge may not be what we have in the south. And then strategic approach to overcoming these issues with continual innovation targeted to serve the need of specific population, we can further financial inclusion and improve people's day-to-day lives while positively impacting communities around the country. Thank you so much and good morning. I hope I didn't spend more than 15 minutes. Thank you.
You try to keep the time, which is awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Lanre, for talking to us about the cashless economy, the problems that we have, the solution, the challenges that we've also faced in the financial technology industry, involving people who are unbanked and underbanked, and telling us about the solutions that can be preferred. And I'm sure that everyone on the call has heard everything that you have said. If you have questions, please do remember to drop them in the Q&A session so that we can take them as Mr. Lanre is on the call with us before we wrap up his session. While we're at that, expecting questions from everyone, you mentioned something that really stuck with me. You said it's not everyone that has a bank account, but you didn't stop there. You said that having a bank account does not make you financially included. And that really stuck with me. A lot of millennials and Gen Z these days feel like because they have bank accounts and they have the smartphones, they obviously know what's going on in the financial technology industry. And then I think that you've been able to debunk that mindset. So if you're on this call and you have a bank account, it does not mean that you are getting all of the benefits that the government has allowed us to have in Nigeria for being in the financial technology sector. Now you can use your smartphones to download applications like the CyberPay mobile application. You can use it to do your transactions, like purchase airtime, do your transfers. You can also use it to pay your bills, and then you can get your money back. When I say your money back now, it means that there's some promotions that we've made available for you while you're using the applications. So aside the CyberPay, I'm sure there are other applications that you can also download out there that allow you to do investments on your mobile applications where you're not just saving your money in your bank account, but you're actually making your money work for you. You can also have access to loans using your smart applications on your smartphones as well. So going to the QA room, we have a question from Kazim Abdurrahim. It said, interesting presentation, Mr. Lanre. I understand that fintech disruption is one of the major threats to the banking system. What is your take on fintech collaboration with the bank, considering the disruption in the premise?
Yes, thank you so much. I don't, even as a bank, we don't see fintech participation in the financial service or financial ecosystem as being a threat. We see them as equally ensuring that we have an encompassing ecosystem where we can bring everybody into the inclusive net of the federal government. You remember the last administration of CBN focused so much on financial inclusion, and their target was that by 2020, yes, this 2024, that we should have about 90% inclusion rate. That has not been achieved, but we've made a whole lot of progress. And do you think only banks can actually achieve that? It's not possible. Only banks cannot achieve that. So we see fintechs as partners. And I even mentioned in the course of my presentation, most of the fintechs, we need a settlement relationship. We need a settlement bank where all the transactions that their customers are, performing settles into a particular bank. Most of them does not have, except those that have maybe a microfinance license or the MMOs, that is the mobile money operators. Most fintechs does not have the right to keep money. They don't have the right to keep deposit because those deposits are not for them. Most of the deposits are actually for the customers. So what CBN has the policy they brought up is that, or the existing policy is that those monies that the fintechs are actually getting from their customers must be within the bank. So we see them as partners and not as threats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. That's the only question in the Q&A session for now. And I think that with that in mind, everyone understands everything that you have said, and we do not have questions, more questions for Mr. Larry. It means that you're a very good teacher. You've been able to take us through the process of what's happening in the financial industries, and then you've been able to let us know how we can partake in reaping the benefits of the industry and the things that government has made available for us. So thank you so much, staff, for having us. We really appreciate your time with us today. Moving on to the next session, we have our in-house host, who is Mr. Elvis Ifekam, who will be taking us through the CyberPay products today. I'll be introducing Mr. Elvis shortly. Mr. Elvis has a robust background in business development and technology. He brings to the table his experiences in sales for over 15 years in the banking sector, in operations sector, in the cards and services sector, the e-business sector, key account management. His expertise extends to acquiring, fintech, and payment system with a strong focus on financial inclusion through agent expansion and retail penetration. His skill set is comprehensive, encompassing leadership, analytical thinking, problem solving, negotiation, and presentation skills. Join me as we welcome Mr. Elvis today to talk to us about the products that we currently offer in cyberspace, and how you can partner with us at CyberPay to build products that can enhance financial inclusion in the financial technology industry. Mr. Elvis, you have the floor. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Remy. That was a very, very powerful introductory speech by you. And I want to say a very big thanks to the ED at NIBS, Ngova. I also want to thank Larry for his, in-depth knowledge and, presentation on financial inclusion. I would briefly talk about our products. And there's something that was really, that I should actually, bring to fore here or bear. That today, as a fintech, you need to cooperate. It's competition, according to a new term that has been coined, that when fintechs collaborate, when competing fintechs collaborate, it's called co-opetition. So it makes us, know that there's more beyond just competing. You can compete and still make money together. Can you see my slides, please?
Yes, yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So thank you once again, and I appreciate everybody who's joined in for this webinar. And trust me, I would just spend less than 5 minutes run through the products that we have. Then if there are questions, I'll take them. All right, so I tried as much as I can to reduce the slides so that, because we know that time is fast spent, and a lot of us have actually been on queues in traffic wherever we are locked down from in Nigeria because of the fuel crisis or petrol crisis in Nigeria. All right, quickly, I'll talk about the contents of this presentation that I have. I would speak to the products that we have, then show you a dashboard that we have. Then there's some of our solutions that are actually, in the works. So today, CyberPay is actually vision to actually be the partner of choice in the financial technology industry, which is the fintech industry. And our mission is to facilitate transactions globally. So what this means to us is that we want to ensure that we don't only process transactions here in Nigeria, but we do it globally. We want to go beyond, not just in Nigeria, but beyond Africa and, as it were, everywhere in the world. We want to get to as far as Asia and even America. So CyberPay was actually developed to actually solve, the frictions in the fintech sector. And today we have very robust APIs and platforms. And I can assure you that doing business with us would not be something you regret. And that being said, we are a fintech. We are one of the best in the country as it is. We are licensed by the CBN for PSSP, which is a payment solution service provider, and PTSP, which is a payment terminal service provider. So today we have PCI DSS certification, and we have done ISO for BCMS and ISMS, which means that your data is actually secure with us. We also have been doing a lot on NDPR, which is the data protection by the regulators. So today you can actually do business with us and go to sleep, because we are not just coming into the country to say, oh, or into the ecosystem to say, because others are doing it. We are here because we are solving, problems. So basically, what makes us unique at CyberPay? We have very simple API-based integrations. So with simple APIs that we have a sandbox, you can pick from our sandbox. You can either do direct debits, integrations with us. You can do payments. You can do collections. You can do USSD implementation for micro payments, micro collections, micro savings. The ED at NIBS was also talking about micro payments, which has actually powered a lot of economics like the one in Kenya, the M-Pesa, as well as in India. Then we have tokenization and recurring debit also. We have very structured and secured query system. This query system means that at every point in time, you can be assured that your transactions will be successful. And even if it's pending for a long time, we can actually seek, to requery the system to get the final status of any transaction that we do today. Then what we also pride ourselves in here at CyberPay is pump settlement of transactions. So our cycle is actually fixed. For people who do actually T+1, they get their money as a when due. Then we also have access to multiple, channels of collections on our payment gateway. What this means is that on our payment gateway, you can check out with your bank accounts, you can check out with your USSD, you can check out with QR, you can check out with cards, you can do bank transfer, as it were. So, the list is endless because we have about 7 or so. And we've recently integrated eNaira as a checkout option on our payment gateway. And we also have multiple processing or switching channel. What this means is that we have backup. All right, like in Nigeria today, we know that a lot of us cannot just do with one mobile phone, right? So today you see people carrying 2 mobile phones, or even that one mobile phone might have an eSIM and also have another SIM. What this means is that you may go to an area where a particular network is not actually available, but you would have a backup. And also, a lot of us have been actually doing backups with respect to electricity. So you go to people's houses today, you see they have maybe like a soundproof. they also have an inverter. So what this means is that with CyberPay, rest assured that your transactions will always go through, because we have created a backup for every of our solution. You want to go to our payment gateway today, if the main one fails, a backup is there for you to actually run with. Then we have ITSR. TSR means transaction success rate. What this means to us is that at every point in time, our success rate is very high based on the fact that we have backup and we have very robust platform. And guess what? We host our data on the cloud. So, and what we've done with the cloud computing company is such that as our transactions are growing in numbers, we don't need to actually have them to come and compute again and advise us of the size, or we don't need to actually start, haggling about how much we're going to pay for the extensions or the expansion. So we tell them at a particular rate, maybe when our transaction rate gets to like 50% of the size of the sales size, we tell them to please expand. So we don't need to have any discussion, and this also leverages the fact that your data is secure and the backup is actually there. Then we have very simple reporting dashboard that enables our merchants to actually view transactions. We have a couple of solutions that I will speak to. We have the CyberPay mobile app, which is on the iOS and the App Store. You can download it and do transactions, seamless transfers, airtime, bills payments. We have merchants actually on that platform as well that are actually coming on. Then we have the mobile payment solutions. We have the web portal payment solution. We have a payment gateway. Then the marketplace is actually coming soon. It's something in the works. We have USSD solutions. So if you're a merchant today and you want to collect fees from your customers, we can give you a QR code or USSD code that you use. We can give you a code. We can give you a code that you can use for collections. So we have a couple of merchants today who want to actually do different things, as it were. They want to collect fees from their customers. We give them codes to do that. Then disbursement and payouts. So we have APIs also that can be used for disbursements, for payouts. We have one-to-one, which is single payments. If you want to pay maybe like a staff, you have just one staff, you have 5 staff, you can use our disbursement APIs. One-to-one is you are paying one person. One-to-many is you have a schedule. You want to pay staff salaries for even 1,000 people. You can use that to actually disburse to any bank account in Nigeria. We also have the micro pension and micro insurance solution. We have the social media payment pages for merchants who do not have a website or who do not have websites today. They can actually use our solutions for payments or collections. So what it means is that we would actually generate a link and send to you that you can use to actually advise those who are owing you. And guess what? We have some, cooperatives that are using this today to actually gather funds. People who do a susu today, because you say, oh, I don't trust Mr. A, who cannot put the money in his pocket or in his account. You can create a virtual account that you can use for such collections. Then we have the loan repayment solution today for most microfinance banks that are in our books. You can use that to actually collect the funds that you have actually disbursed to your customers. So we have different sectors we are focused on. We have the Edu portal for schools. We also have some other very lovely and beautiful solutions because we are actually a subsidiary of a parent, which is Cyberspace Group. So we are into cloud computing, Edu portal, internet service provision, a lot of other things. When you think of IT, think of Cyberspace Group or CyberPay. So the thing is, we're here to actually serve, and we're here to actually disrupt and solve a lot of frictions in the ecosystem. So this is a sample of the dashboard that we have. And like I mentioned to you, I won't spend more than 5 minutes. I'm sure I've not even spent up to 6 minutes. So dashboard is easy to capture the details of the payer. So you can know who's paying. You can capture the time and volume of payment on the transaction that you can actually view. And this can even aid your reconciliation process. So when you can actually track your history, and it will aid your settlement eventually. So we can also share the collection history of your payments and share it via any other channel that you want to, either WhatsApp or whatever media you want to actually use to share. So in all this, I will wrap up by saying thank you so much, everyone that has joined this webinar, and we'll be having more. I'm sure my colleague Remy, who is the head of products and partnerships, I've asked that people share their email addresses so we can share the slides with everyone who's joined. And that's our email address. We are located in Olugwagbaji, number 12 in VI. And that's our group email, team@cyberpay.net.ng. And that's our mobile numbers. So you can reach out if you have any, idea, or you want to partner with us for collections, for payments, for building any, solution as it were, because we are a solutions company. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
So if there are questions, comments, I can take them now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Elvis. Do we have questions or comments for Elvis? Let me quickly go through the Q&A. Oh yeah, we have people dropping their email addresses already. Don't forget to drop your email address like you said. If you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A session. And while Elvis is still here waiting for our questions in the Q&A session, I'd like to admonish everyone on the call to download the CyberPay mobile application. So on your App Store, on your Google Play Store, you can just type CyberPay and download the mobile app. Okay. Elvis, there's a question for you. Any plan for cross-border payment support?
All right, thank you so much. Yes, we have very lofty ideas and plans. So we intend to also, like I mentioned, we don't want to just restrict ourselves to Nigeria. We want to process transactions globally. So that being said, based on regulation, because we are a company that actually prides itself that we operate under the ambit of the law, so we would, engage accordingly and get the appropriate license. So we don't actually operate, beyond the licenses that we have today. So as time, goes, we will get more licenses from the CBN and ensure that we do remittances, not just within Africa, but, across the globe. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Elvis. I think that with that, while we are all downloading the mobile application, there are gifts for everyone. There will be a session where we'll all still show our mobile apps from our phones. And then there'll be gifts for the first 2 people that joined. If they stay to the end of the webinar, I'll be checking if you stay to the end of the webinar. So while we wrap up, if there are any suggestions or contributions to all that the speakers have said, from Mrs. Ngova to Mr. Lanre and to Mr. Elvis, please drop them on the Q&A session as well. On that note, I think we can come to the end of the webinar today. And we have enough time already to download our CyberPay mobile application. So please, we'll be looking to the back end to see the people who just downloaded. And if you have registered, we'll see your email. I'll be able to match it with the email for registration or the email that you'll be dropping in the Q&A session. And we'll be reaching out to you for your gifts. On that note, I'd like to say thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I promise not to take up to 2 hours of your time. This is 11:45, and I think I kept to my promise. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure that we've all learned 1 or 2 things, and then you've seen how you can be a major partaker and partner in the fintech industry. You're all welcome. Do let us have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. And we'll be hosting the 7 webinars, every quarter, minimum 1 per quarter. So we'll be sending out, those notifications as, we progress with those webinars. Thank you, everyone, for your time. The ED at NIBS, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Larry Oladimeji, GM Zenith Retail Banking Group, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Remy. Thank you, everyone. And my GMD is also on this webinar. Thank you so much, sir. I want to, thank every member of the group for their time and support. My friends and colleagues and partners in the industry, we thank you, and we hope to actually collaborate better and more. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. See you next quarter.
Yes, thank you.